Well, let's get analysis on all of this now with Renata Segura in New York. She's the Deputy Program Director for Latin America and the Caribbean at the International Crisis Group. Renata, good to have you on TRT World. So a second term for Bukele seems pretty much set at this point. What does this mean now for El Salvador and its future?
Well, I think the competition right now is between the democratic slide that we have been seeing in recent months in El Salvador and the possibility of actually continuing with a security strategy that has been very successful until now, but we are not sure it will be sustainable. As you know, a great amount of people have been jailed in El Salvador under the state of exception, around 72,000 people. El Salvador has right now the highest percent of people per capita in jail. Is this something that is sustainable in the long term? We also know that Bukele has engaged in negotiations with some of the gang leaders, and that has also had an impact on the reduction of violence. So we have to see what's coming forward, if Bukele is going to continue to appeal to the state of exception, if the violence remains low and actually keeps on going low. And also the question of what happens now in democratic terms. Bukele controls the majority of Congress, as well as the courts. His re-election is by all means unconstitutional, but the people of El Salvador have decided to put their support behind him because their lives have changed so significantly in the course of the last year. They went from being completely besieged by gangs to now being able to go on the streets, have employment, send their kids to school without fear. And that is a decision that they've decided to make.
And Renata, because of this reduction in violence that has happened quite quickly under Bukele's administration, how will he use that and to take the country forward? Because the economy, of course, and unemployment are also issues that people are facing and they're concerned about, and hoping that he will also be able to reduce unemployment in the country and grow the economy.
Absolutely. I mean, I think the question of how he moves forward now that the security concern remains, less of a day-to-day, and how he moves forward. I mean, one thing that is obvious when you go to El Salvador these days is that people are being able to engage in economic activities that were not possible a few years ago. So people are doing little entrepreneurial, like a taco stand, a tortilla stand. People are doing food delivery into neighborhoods where that was not possible. So in that way, there seems to be a little bit of a growth. Bukele has put a lot of its money on El Salvador becoming a tourist attraction and really appealing to those people that, for example, go now to Costa Rica. If the security remains good, that is something that might be feasible, but it is unlikely that is going to fulfill the economic needs of so many Salvadorians. We need to remember that the Salvadorian people very much depend on remittances. There are millions of people abroad that send money every year, and that's something that continues to be key for the economic development. But I think that now Bukele needs to take the opportunity to really start bringing bigger companies into the country, and also allowing a stronger middle class also engage in its own economic development.
Renata, I'm also wondering about the security situation in El Salvador and the methods that he has used to reduce that violence. Could you see other countries in the region who are also grappling with these same security issues, actually copying what he has done and looking at El Salvador as a country that stands as something that has actually managed to bring down the violence and the gang violence in particular?
I mean, there is no country in Latin America that you go these days that people on the street don't tell you what we need is another Bukele. Now, the conditions that have allowed the Bukele security strategy to be so successful are fairly unique to this country for now. As I was saying before, he has the great majority of the assembly, so the legislative is just approving anything that he wants. And he also has control of the courts, which are not putting any kind of counterbalance to his decisions. Honduras, for example, we have seen has tried something similar, but because the Castro administration does not control neither the Congress nor the courts in the way that Bukele does, it hasn't been so easy. But I think that he's definitely setting a tone to other countries in Latin America so that they appeal to these kind of iron fist policies that have failed in the past. And we should be very clear about this. Iron fists have in general not worked, and they have not worked before in El Salvador. But it's this very specific set of circumstances and the fact that he has also engaged in negotiations with the gang leaders that have allowed it to move forward. So while it is going to be tempting to follow his example, I think rulers in other countries should be wise to examine why exactly is it that it has worked so well, and if it will be wise to actually try to repeat something of this sort. It definitely, the losses on the democratic path that El Salvador has gone under are very worrisome and should worry other countries in Latin America.
Renata Segura, it's been really good to get your analysis. You've explained that so comprehensively to us. Thank you very much again for your time.
Thank you for having me.